Hey guys, welcome to Spite Plays. Today we're going to be making a cEDH tier list. This list is going to be comprised of around 70 decks, mainly from the cEDH database. The video is going to be split up into around 3 to 4 parts, as it took us around 3 hours to film. If you guys like Magic and Eternal formats as much as us, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it and love to get your feedback. If you feel we left out a deck you really enjoy, or have other comments on the format as a whole, let us know down below. Thanks for checking out the channel, and without further ado, let's get into the tier list.
The next and we're at the
best
favorite
deck in the format. So this is
Ancestor's Apostle.
Instantly, we don't even have to talk about this deck. Everyone knows this deck is instantly an SS tier. It's actually above Najeela and Blue Farm.
Yeah.
I mean, you're mono white. You're instantly cooler than everyone.
Of course. And the fact that it folds to any stacks piece is really wonderful. And that's why it's going into D tier. If you see any stacks piece, it's just you're screaming and there's no way to get back up. You're lying on the sidewalk with a punctured lung.
Yeah, Teshar's a SS if you're playing against battleships.
Patrick, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Teshar is.
I like this deck. I really do.
It looks really cool. And I remember seeing him build it. It was really cool.
It's like a drag racer or something that just explodes the moment that it hits any. It hits any sort of ground that's uneven by a millimeter. It just flips over and the engine explodes. There's parts flying into the crowd. It's a whole catastrophe.
I will say, because it is mono white and it's a weird deck and it's turbo, people do not respect it at all, and that gives it an edge. I think that actually makes it, the fact that you're playing mono white and you're playing a weird turbo-y artifact, I don't know, the combo.
It's eggs.
Yeah, it's eggs. So this deck, just because it's mono white and people don't respect it, they won't expect you to win, and so they'll kind of just not keep things for you. When I'm playing against a Nas deck and I'm playing a more control-y deck, or if I'm playing against Godo, I'm okay, this guy could possibly get turn 1 Treason Soaker. I'm gonna keep a Force of Will. But with this deck, I'll keep a greedy hand and it'll be whatever, I'm playing against Teshar, who cares?
Yeah.
And then Teshar will just go off and you're oh wait, did no one keep anything? Oh.
Sure.
And so I think for that reason, it makes it into C tier. I think it's got it.
I think it's D tier.
It's D.
Yeah. I
really wish this deck was better. Okay, it's great, right? It's mono white eggs with a bird. But it's just not there.
That's true. I'll agree with that. I think top of D's.
It can win in full mid-range pods where none of the mid-range pods are playing Collector Oof.
Good luck.
Yeah. It is taking every ounce of me to not say it as a casual deck. But I am willing to say it's a D tier deck.
Well, you wouldn't play in casual though, because all the casual players would hate you.
Hey, look,
they're still casting Cultivate, and you're trying to win.
Some high power casual players love their weird combos.
Fair.
Yeah, they love their Kiki Jiki shit. They love their, I don't know.
Oh well, I do too.
Yeah.
But
it's
cool.
Save that shit for Grunzo.
All right, let's go on to the other mono white. Oh wait, just kidding. This is the fraud mono white commander. It's the 5-color Kenrith. Which is usually people are on the stacks Kenrith list, which is honestly, I think, probably a top tier stacks deck.
It's one of the best ones.
I think it's
damn good.
It's pretty up there. It's definitely
not the one. It's one of the best ones.
Yeah, you could argue it's the best one, honestly. It's a cool stacks deck. One of our friends plays it, and it plays all the good stacks, and Kenrith allows you to just grind so much value with all his activated abilities. It does really bad when you if someone's able to get Pithy Needle, Cursed Totem, something that can stop the activations because it
Cursed
gets
Totem effect is
Dranith or something like that. So you need the commander.
Good thing pretty much none of the stacks decks can afford to play those cards. So
exactly, yeah, that's the thing. It's very hard for stacks decks to play those cards effectively. So Kenrith is able to just get around it, and once he's out and he has just one stacks thing, the value that you accrue, if you get a Seaborn Moose out, you just win the game. You start getting so much value, and he's able to play that rule of law game better than almost anyone else.
Yeah, I would be comfortable putting Kenrith firmly in S tier.
Yeah, I would actually put him, pretty up there with like Ikra, Shadiki, and
I think pretty high, very high, in S tier.
Yeah, definitely. It's a cool deck. If you want to play like a stacks deck that is running all the good stacks cards and has really interesting combos, it's one of those decks that I would give to new players as well, like Najila, that just because it has a lot of cool things that you can do. It's a little harder to pilot, I think.
Yeah,
but it's cool. Let's go on to Korvold. This is a Turbo Nos list, but it's on the green instead of the blue, which is kind of sans blues. You lose a lot, but Korvold does. He gets out and he's pretty scary. But everyone says it
gives you a lot. That's the thing. Korvold gives a lot back that you lose from it not having blue. I used to not be very high on Korvold, but after seeing it in practice, I'm kind of converted. I think this deck is pretty strong.
It's pretty strong, yeah. I'd agree.
I'm gonna put it up in S. Straight up.
I would put it up in S as well. It's a Turbo Nos. If you don't like blue, play this deck and you're gonna have some fun with it. The turns you have with Korvold are gonna be so explosive. You're gonna be doing a lot.
And I think when Hullbreacher was in the format, I would have put this at A tier.
Right. Same as well.
But I do think right now with Hullbreacher banned, I think this is an S tier deck.
Yeah, I agree. The Hullbreacher ban definitely bumped it up a notch. But yeah, it's a Turbo Nos deck at heart.
And we just have to mention, obviously, if you play Dockside at any point, you're just off to the races.
The deck winds up kind of just, unlike a lot of other Turbo Nos decks, this one winds up having this weird resilient factor where like it'll get its shit interacted with, and then it'll just slam the dragon and just kind of plow through all the interaction. And you have like the best colors for removing stacks pieces and stuff. Deck feels good.
Yeah. Let's go into one of the most interesting decks. You know it's a good deck if it's playing Treasonous Ogre, so Niv-Mizzet is the other deck that plays Treasonous Ogre. And this is an awesome deck. It's a very cool Curious Control.
Niv-Mizzet's cool.
Is that Curious? No, not Curious Control.
It plays Curiosity Effect.
It plays Curiosity, there you go. That's the win con, right? It attaches to it. Let me look that card up, actually.
Curiosity Effects.
So I do like Niv-Mizzet. I think I'm higher on him for these like mid-range pods where you have more time to play him, and then they're really stuck because they're playing more of these instants and sorceries than the stacks decks are. And once Niv-Mizzet is in play, it's difficult to lose because you're getting so much advantage off him and you're shooting things left and right. Yeah. But that's the thing. He has to come into play first. And that's why I think he's B tier. Because the blue, red is very difficult.
It's difficult. The one thing I will say that I want to put him... I don't know. I want to put him bottom of A tier. And a big reason for that is because I think he's probably one of the best control decks you can play. And he also is uncounterable. So you know when you're casting him, you know he's going to resolve. So even though you're getting there, it's like... You know, you're getting there, but it's going to resolve. So it's not like up in the water, like, oh, they could counter this, and then now I'm set back a turn, and I had to spend all this like time setting up for this mana. But you're able to get him out almost every time. I've never seen like him not resolve when he's casted.
Yeah, so I would be inclined to agree with you, Jesse. I think the deck is in a fairly nice spot, having win cons that win through Rule of Law. Now having Jeweled Lotus and Dockside to get him out.
That's big.
You know what? That is true. It does with the Rule of Law pretty comfortably. Okay, yeah. I see what I can say that I can get behind that then.
Yeah, I think the deck winds up being able to play pretty well into balanced pods. Pretty much most balanced pods. The deck can it has legs in balanced pods.
I'm putting it.
We like our dragons.
We're talking about A tier, right? Top of A tier, is that what you're saying?
I think it's an A tier. I think when the deck struggles is when you're playing against. I would say if you're either if you're kind of playing against a lot of anything, if you're playing against a lot of Turbonaz, a lot of mid-range, or just a lot of stacks, the deck winds up having difficulty for just a couple different reasons, or for a different reason for each of them. When you're playing against the stacks decks, you'll see like random collector oofs come out and stuff that make it hard. And when everyone is kind of like on the same game plan except you, it just winds up being difficult dealing with that. And then in the mid-range pods, it's kind of interesting because mid-range decks are more likely to be playing Gilded Drake, and they'll be scared of your Niv-Mizzet, and that'll be something that comes down more often. Right. And then turbo pods, it's just really hard to hold down 3 players.
Yeah,
definitely.
But I think overall it's in a good place right now. I like it.
Yeah.
It's
okay then.
It's a fun deck, and it's got its identity. And honestly, that if it wasn't uncounterable, it'd probably be in like the B. But I think the fact that it's uncounterable just pushes it so high, because resolving it allows you to do so much, and uncounterable makes it so
it's very clear of like when you turn the corner with the deck, and that's like the moment you have like the 6 mana for your Niv-Mizzet.
Right, exactly. Let's go into a deck that's pretty interesting. There's people talking up about this deck in our LGS, about it doing doing well in their like FNM tournaments that they play. I guess this Game Store Nexus has a competitive commander like tournaments every Friday, and apparently this deck takes a lot of wins. It's how do you say that?
Which one? Kinnan?
Kinnan, yeah.
Kinnan Bonder Prodigy.
This deck, I don't know. What do you guys think about it? I don't know too much about it, but I know it just dumps out mana.
Kinnan plays pretty well into mid-range pods. You're just able to dump so much mana and you're just able to play a lot of things, and the mid-range decks just have like a hard time dealing with all of that. You kind of just go I don't know how to put it. You kind of just do everything you're trying to do pretty fast, and the interaction suite is not quite there to deal with you.
Right.
You're not quite as fast as you're not as fast as Turbonaz decks.
You're not being Rog.
Have compact win cons, but you kind of just play things, you dump pretty quickly, and then Kinnan lets you wind up accruing value by activating him, and it feels like a decent deck.
I'd say solidly an A tier then, because I'm thinking maybe even S. Not sure.
I wouldn't put it in S.
Okay.
I think A tier is fair.
Solidly A tier.
What do you think, Alex?
Sad you keep my noises at this point, seeing all these decks above it. But I'm inclined to agree though. I think like A tier sounds about right for it. It's not a deck that, again, I think is really like gangbusters or anything. This isn't a deck that I'm like saying, oh hell yeah, this is like it's just fine. Like for everything that's going on, it's like kind of middle of the road. It's solid. It's not like spectacular, but it's not struggling either.
Right.
That's the difference. So I think you're going to be able to like go into pretty much any pod with Kinnan and have a good time, because at a certain point you're playing these permanents that produce mana and you're getting it all this mana with Kinnan. At a certain point it's just like when you're cutting wrapping paper and the scissors start gliding.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into a really cool deck that I like. I've been looking at this deck too. It's a Winota, and it's a stacks deck that I love stacks decks. I like those 4-hour games. I always say, why win like 10 games in an hour when you can win, one game,
one game in 10 hours.
In 10 hours, and you just be like, hell yeah, I won that game.
Yeah, the stacks decks pretty much, I'm not going to say this for Winota specifically, but even when they're not winning the most, they're winning the most because the longest amount of time is being spent with them in the driver's seat.
You don't win more, you win longer.
Yeah. Their wins are longer.
And this is
you just kind of savor the game.
This is a cool deck that can really like dump out creatures pretty effectively and just accrue advantage, kind of like Kenrith, but not as much, I think.
As far as decks go, I'm pretty high on Winota. The fact that you can just play Winota and you start snowballing is really appealing, because that's the issue that you run into with playing a fast deck into these stacks decks. A lot of the time it's just, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then a single stacks piece comes down. It's like, okay, well, I can, slow down a turn, maybe do this. But with Winota, it's just these layers after layers, and they keep piling on. So at a certain point, you just get really stuck. And it's the volume of creatures that you're getting is pretty great. So it's harder to counter with something like a Rushing River, maybe, that's like surgically targeted at like a Rule of Law and like a Collector Oof or something like that.
Exactly. It's an interesting deck. I think it's pretty cool.
Because then you're still missing the Samurai, the Pale Curtain. Come on.
Yeah.
I took that out of the deck, by the way, even though I bought it.
Winota is one of the few stacks decks that's able to throw down stacks pieces and then quickly like turn the corner and start just like turning your stacks pieces into value. And the deck is definitely one of the strongest stacks decks, and I would put it in S tier.
Okay.
It has difficulty with a bunch of mid range, especially when you wind up playing against a bunch of decks that are playing like board wipes. The deck dies to board wipes. When those come out, it'll just die. But
not a lot of people play board wipes.
cEDH. There are not a lot of board wipes.
Very few board wipes nowadays, so it's definitely I could agree with the S tier. It's a really cool. I was actually thinking of building that one too, but I already have too many decks. Let's go to Selvala. Another monocolored
mono green Selvala, perfect for people getting into the format, right? Or so I've been told for years.
I don't know why people say that.
What do you mean Selvala isn't the premier fast deck anymore? What do you mean I can't play my Ancient Tree Folk and just win on the spot? Yeah, so we gotta talk about Selvala here.
We on this deck a lot because a lot of people are so highly of this deck, and they think it's really good for beginners, or they think it's like a super fast deck, but it's one of those decks that was good like 5 years ago.
Yeah, guys, we have to talk about Selvala. It hasn't gotten anything new in a long time. Literally.
Don't forget about Kogla.
It's like Kogla, shared summons, and endurance, and like that's it. I don't see Selvala being very good.
I consider this
I'm inclined to almost. I'm thinking D tier, honestly, almost. That's kind of mean, but like, ooh man, I don't know. So like, you just run into a lot of issues with these sort of stacks decks, and you're not able to really race people as well as you used to.
No.
It's just like, and in the mid range pods, you're gonna like eat the interaction. You need like the Veil of Summer, so you're just being like squeezed out on all these different fronts.
She just doesn't have a lot of options, and like we said with monocolor, if you're going monocolor, your commander wants to be doing something like really freaking great, and it does have a good ability, but I think the restriction on colors and the fact that it just can't keep up with Turbonauz, and it's just worse than that, and it doesn't do anything different or special.
But you know what's the saddest part about playing Selvala? You play Selvala, and then the Turbonauz player plays their Crom and draws a card.
I do think you can find yourself into certain pods where you can be successful. When you find yourself arriving in mid-range, in pods with mid-range decks that are oriented in such a way where they're playing a lot of like, counter spells like miscasts and such, the deck can perform. But even then, I still don't think it's great, because Selvala actually winds up having a lot of instant and sorcery cards it wants to resolve, so it doesn't even play around that superbly well.
Yeah, because you need your pump spells.
Yeah, I'm inclined to put this in D.
And here's the bad thing also is that you're also getting hit by the artifact hate, because you think like, well, I'm mono green, I don't need that for acceleration. I have my mana dorks. But you need your Staff of Domination or your Umbral Mantle.
Yeah, I think D tier is pretty good for it. I was thinking high power casual, but I was like, Teshar's there. So
No, it's
Teshar's in
better.
D tier, so I think it's around that.
Yeah.
We gotta talk about Brago, guys.
Yeah,
we gotta talk about Brago now.
So
Alex, you take the
I want to say
So-
something really quick though. We had a
Sure.
thing called Stacks November, and we played Brago, Nath, and Bloodpod. Which is, and then we would have one player try to survive the stacks.
It was like running the gauntlet.
And everyone was just having, it was like 4-hour games. But honestly, Brago did take a lot of those games, so you can talk about it.
Yeah. So here's the issue. Brago isn't well positioned right now. I've played this deck for a long time. This was my first competitive deck. I think I know a thing or two about Brago. The issue is with Brago, he doesn't play well with other stacks decks. He doesn't play like other stacks decks because the things he prioritizes are different. He doesn't like the Rule of Laws or the Stony Silences. He wants to like, if there's a Rule of Law, it needs to be the limited ones. Like it needs to be the Deafening Silence or the Aethersworn Canonist. So that's the kind of issue you run into. With Brago, ideally, you want to be paired up with mid-range decks to help you keep things down, not other stacks decks, because other stacks decks are gonna like race you and they're gonna mess you up. They're doing these really weird things, and they're gonna play their like, I don't know, they can even play like their Hushbringer, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the issue you run into because you can't even play these effects yourself. The way you win is always you slam your Strionic Resonator or now your Lithoform engine, and you get infinite flicker triggers. You play that one spell, you need to play another spell. You need to keep drawing through your deck. You need to like flicker with a draw enchantment until you get to Venser, Shaper, Savant. Then you play the Venser and bounce everything. Okay, this doesn't play into Rule of Law very well. Deafening Silence, Aethersworn Canonist, doable. Not Rule of Law. So you run into issues there.
That makes sense.
So
It's pretty, I think it's a deck that people have had for a while. So it's cool to like build upon, and you can pilot it pretty well. It's cool, but
this deck gets so much better when it's like a mid-range meta. Like
Right.
the whole like sandbaggy meta that
really
used to be
good.
pretty common with like Flash Hulk, it was much better in because you had these
Much
mid-range decks.
Yeah.
Now it's like Turbo Nas versus Stacks, and the Stacks isn't even on your side. So he has to go and see. He can get better, but he's kind of in the he's like stuck in the crypt right now.
yeah, I'll leave that. I think that sounds like a good thing. I'd say he's pretty top of the C tier though.
Yeah.
He's up there because he's still a stacks deck, and stacks decks are pretty good right now. So. Birgi, the next one, a weird mono red deck. I've seen people play it. It seems pretty cool. It seems really fast, but it's also monocolored, so
It's
It's gotta go, it's gotta go in the monocolored tier.
It dies to all the relevant
it dies. It's like Teshar, right? It's kind of like
It's a D.
it's a D.
It's a D.
Yeah.
It's the exact same problem with Teshar of like you run into any speed bump and you go flying and break every bone in your
It's got
body.
the drag racer complex. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely, it just shoots out super fast, but
I'd love to play it sometime, but this deck is
faster
so
than
fragile.
Teshar,
it's so fast.
but
yeah.
it doesn't play around counter magic as well.
But here's the thing also, you whiff more often with Birgi than you do with Teshar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because you get like the Grinning Ignis combo, but you still need an outlet for it. So a lot of the cards in the deck like cantrip, and you can do that where you're like cantripping and you're generating mana and you're like trying to draw your next cards, but you can just stop and that's it.
Yeah.
I like Birgi more in other decks as an engine.
Oh
Yeah.
she's awesome, and she is awesome in Godo.
And she's a lot more awesome when you also have like the versatility of, being able to cast
Play her with the horn side.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like the horn can be pretty good in positions as well. People don't usually think about the horn, but the horn actually,
I've used it a couple times. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
it can be a card you want. But you're kind of it has problems.
Yeah. Let's get on to a really cool deck, Stacks deck, that I think is pretty well positioned actually. It's a God of Winter, Jorah? Is that it?
Jorn.
Jorn?
Jorn, there you go. I always say that wrong. It looks like a J to me. Yeah, Jorn, God of Winter. It's a cool deck. I like it.
So
I think it's got
here-
good colors.
looking at the deck, yes, it's easy to say like stacks because you see some of the mana denial on there, but I think it plays more like a mid-range deck, to be honest, in a lot of cases, because you're relying on the counter spells to do a lot of the heavy lifting here, and the mana denial is kind of there because you're like beating up other decks that care about that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I have seen it. Like, it sounds funny. We will say this sometimes, but like tournaments are really weird, especially with cEDH, because the format's not like really built up as well. And sometimes some tournaments they'll say cEDH, but like they won't allow like certain things, or the decks are just not built to the most optimal. And so people will win with like Ragavan, which has literally happened super recently. And so like you gotta take those with a grain of salt. I think a lot of these decks, like with all these decks, you can literally win any cEDH game with. It just that's how cEDH is. It's a very, I call it a casual format because it's not like super competitive in the fact that you're gonna win very consistently.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a fun format. It was made as a casual format, but this is just taking it to the highest level you can. And
here's how I might consider it. So you know how in other formats like Modern, people just tell you you're playing jank, you should probably play something better? Okay, EDH kind of isn't like that because it's socially acceptable to play these really janky, weird decks. So in my view, cEDH is kind of just like what you would see for like Modern, for like MTG Goldfish, something like that, where you have like the top decks broken down. And you know, there's like stuff varied in there, but there's like very few decks that are like total garbage fires, something like that. So this is kind of what I'm reminded of. This is like kind of like a snippet of like what's really like viable if you care about winning more, I suppose.
Relating that to Jorn though, is I have seen it do pretty well in like some established tournaments, and it does have a cool engine with like untapping, and it can play Winter Orb, which is a really cool card.
I like it. I like what it does. I'm just not convinced how powerful it is. It feels like a B to me.
I think it might be an A tier, honestly.
It has a similar problem to Brago, where you're like kind of fighting the other stacks decks because they're like
pulling in a different direction than you.
Yeah, they're pulling in a different direction with you, so you don't get to have the benefit of like having them on your side. I've played the deck a little bit. You're playing Sultai, so you get to do the Sultai good stuff. You get to play a lot of just like generically good cards, but you don't pull ahead quite as well as other mid-range decks. Like you don't get a ton of value. Yorn winds up, or is it Yorn or Bjorn?
It's Yorn. It's Yorn.
Yorn, yeah. Yorn winds up like forming these soft combos with a few cards, and he feels like a B tier deck to me.
B tier? I'll put him in B tier. I'll put him next to like Brea. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good. You get bonus points if you play this deck. This is the coolest deck. The Playing with Power had this deck on, and I saw this deck and I was like, what the heck is this? A mono blue deck. I was like, that's cool. And then I read it and I was like, holy crap, this deck's awesome. And like Orvar is just such a interesting deck, but it does have its limitations, and it's just, I wish it was in a better place, but Stacks does hurt this deck. But it's such a cool deck. It plays High Tide, which is one of Alex's favorite cards.
Yeah, I love High Tide.
And it's just, it does cool stuff, and it is able to accrue a ton of value, but it does falter to like a large amount of stacks.
Yeah, it's so the deck kind of has these problems where you need to see like different cards in different games, and you don't always really have access to that. So what I'm kind of talking about is like, for example, if you're playing in a Staxy game or like a slow game, what you really want to do is you want to get like a Rhystic Study or something like that and start making copies of it with Orvar, but you're not always able to find that. And some like trying to go fast with the deck can get shut down to those pods, and then conversely, you might not have the time to set up like these slower engines where you're like copying cards into like faster pods. So it's not consistent enough, I think.
That sounds right.
It has like, there's like a kind of tension going on. That's what I felt when I tried out the deck.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say, John? Just like,
Nah, you kind of nailed it right there.
Sounds about right. I'm thinking B tier. Is that maybe C?
I'm kind of thinking C, to be honest. Yeah. It needs like a little something to get ahead. I think
I can agree with that. I think C
I think the deck can go up though.
It definitely can. If it gets like something, I don't know. I feel like it's so close. It's probably Urza. I think is a better mono blue commander, but yeah, I feel like maybe in the future if it gets something or like stacks pieces, I don't know.
It's very interesting for monocolor decks to like get a lot better when they aren't a tutor. It's very hard for them to quote get a lot better when they're just not able to see they're not able to see the card that might be like a game changer for them as often as decks with a bunch of tutors could, right?
Yeah, and then Goto got Dockside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it just happens like that. But yeah, Orvar's you definitely get it. It's one of those decks that you'll get a high five if I see it.
Yeah.
Yisan, really cool deck. This one's our friends Yisan.
Yeah. This one's interesting actually because I think like Yisan. So for a long time, I've really classified Yisan as this kind of like more parasitic deck, right? Because you weren't really able to meaningfully deal with people going fast. So you need other decks to like kind of have the counter spells for that and like be ready, and then you can like kind of go like, okay, thanks, I'm gonna live now. By the way, you're gonna die. So that's kind of the thing you ran into. Now that there's more stack decks around, I think Yisan is better positioned than it was before because you have this like density of stacks stuff coming down. And guess what? Activated ability doesn't care about rule of law. Who's gonna play Cursed Totem? They can't afford to.
Also, like, another thing I want to point, stop telling, I don't know who tells people to play these decks, but it's like, people think mono green, like Selvala and Yisan are like the starter decks for the format.
Oh, yeah.
It's just because they're cheap. But someone gave me Yisan, I think Max gave me Yisan one time to play, and like, dude, I was so confused. I was like, what am I searching for? Like, you just gotta tutor so much, and you gotta know the different lines, and each game has different lines, because each game is different, obviously. So like you gotta know what's in your deck, and you gotta really like know the combos and know like what you're getting, or else you're just gonna like take forever to do it, and then even that you're just gonna mess up and tutor something out wrong, or it's just a weird deck. So I think when people like say like, oh, this is a good deck to start, I would honestly not go toward like Selvala or Yisan. I would try.
Yisan is one of the worst decks for people to start with.
Pretty hard.
It's like you can get most of it on a budget, but it's terrible for like learning gameplay.
And like,
what do new players struggle with the most? Tutoring. Okay, this whole deck revolves around it. It's a tutor in the command zone that's repeatable.
Exactly. So like, when people think about that, when you think of cEDH,
you're dunking them in the deep end.
Yeah, they're not gonna have fun. I'd say just for like personally, like just proxy up a deck for people to play, or like get some nice NPC proxies that are like 25 cents a card, and you can just I bought Najeela and Rog Silas and Pakahaldon for like $60. Like the whole deck.
Kess. Please do them a favor.
Or Kess.
Not Yisan.
Kess, Kess is a great deck to start with. Najeela is pretty decent. Like those are get you some stuff. Goto's amazing. Goto's super simple. I love giving Goto to people because it's really simple and it has fun lines, and it's easy to pilot because you're just doing one thing. But yeah, Yisan, I don't know. Right now, what would you guys say Yisan's at?
I'm kind of torn between B and A.
I'm torn between A as well.
I'm thinking he's better than like some of these decks in B tier that I'm looking at. Really,
yeah.
I don't see people playing much of Yisan anymore because Max moved away.
Yeah, yeah. But I think.
But I'm thinking A tier.
I think bottom of A is a good idea. I think that's pretty nice. Possibly top of B. I don't know. What do you think, John?
It's interesting. Yisan does have a little bit more contention with stacks decks than people think.
Yeah, because graph diggers will hurt them.
Deck like this, people are more inclined to kind of just like keep hands that have like some sort of search hate or something like that. The deck it's in a weird spot where like it performs well, but then like sometimes it just like
sometimes there's an opposition agent and you've just shit the bed.
That is a big problem with monocolored decks that don't have a lot of removal, and that's why I think Godo is in a really good spot, because even though it's mono red, it still is able to get rid of a lot of removal. Or sorry, it's able to get rid of a lot of things with good removal.
Yeah,
like Chaos Warp, or it's got like especially creature removal. It absolutely, and a lot of the time it's creatures that are stopping the deck.
Yeah, it has the removal that it needs to deal with the problems that it faces.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's perfectly said.
I can see Yisan being an A. People just generally don't play it anymore, but I think the deck is fine.
I think it's an opposition agent effect. When it was printed, everyone was freaking out about how it was going to be such a huge factor, but it's really tapered off. And at this point, it's really only the decks that can afford to play it are on the card. So you're seeing it much less often, which is a huge boon for Yisan.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge problem for that deck.
Yeah, let's go on to Golos. Interesting deck. I don't think I've ever seen people play it.
So Golos is another option for playing Turbo Naz. I think he just goes in S tier with a bunch of other ones. So, so realistically, when you're playing Turbo Naz, you're picking the strategy and then you pick the commanders to like kind of dictate what flavor of the deck you're playing. So for Golos's case, you're teching against in mid-range decks because he's Boseiju in the command zone.
Yeah.
You cast Golos, you get Boseiju. They're not going to counter your Ad Nauseam or Peer. That's why you play him.
Okay, I was wondering why you play him. I don't play Naz that much, so I'm like, wait, what does he do again, and why do people like him? But that makes sense. He's got all the colors. You're playing Naz, and it's a free tutor for Boseiju, so that makes sense. I think S tier. I'd say bottom of S tier is pretty good.
Yeah, I would say bottom.
There's not much to talk about with him, to be honest.
It's just a Naz. It's another Naz.
It's kind of solid.
Yeah.
You know the shell.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to the stacks breaker himself, Yawgmoth. This is a sick mono black deck, like Crick, similar, but I think Yawgmoth is a pretty sick stacks breaker mono black deck as well.
Yeah,
it's too slow to keep up with like Naz decks, and it doesn't have ways to like stop them unless like you Thoughtseize them, I guess, which is weird.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I feel like Yawgmoth can't really be better than something like Jorn, because like you at least have counter spells there to like kind of try to stop the fast decks. With Yawgmoth, you don't have that, even though you're better into other stacks decks.
Yeah.
Okay. I could put him honestly like right next to Crick, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's he doesn't. I don't think he's as good as Crick.
I'll put him underneath them.
Yeah, but I think he's still. I think he's in the same tier.
Oh, he's in B tier for sure. I'll give him that. He's got really cool combos, and you're playing mono black, which is
I like the deck.
Black's one of the best colors. Black and blue are the best colors for a while. Red's getting up there, but it's definitely black and blue, and he's.
I will say that black is more of. It's a really good supplemental color, though.
It is. Yeah, it's hard when it's a mono color.
Yeah, it's not a great color by itself. If we're talking about the best colors by themselves, what just kind of like has a lot going for it, or can do a lot of things, I would say green and blue are the best.
Yeah. Blue and green are kind of your basis, and then black, red, and white.
Yeah.
Red is good, but you don't want to make like a mono red deck most of the time. Like, let's be honest. Godo is like a 2-color like red brown deck.
Pretty much, yeah.
You don't have to play as many red cards.
That's true. Yeah.
So strong.
Red's getting up there, but it hasn't caught up yet. So you want like these good red cards, but you don't want like tons of. You don't want to be drowning in red cards, because at a certain point you're gonna go like, "Whoa, what are we playing here?"
Yeah.
Possibility storm.
Reason why this is the best is because best like color combination, the three of them. I don't think either black or green or excuse me, I don't think either black or red are better than green, just like as a color by itself. But I think the good cards in those colors are more powerful, right? And yeah, kind of my.
That sounds about right. All right, next one we're gonna look at a old food change deck that Alex used to play actually.
Yeah,
how do you
so
feel
we're
on
looking at the first sliver here. So, looking at the first sliver, I'm gonna say easy B tier because it cannot be better than Ugin-Makezar. It really just can't. In my opinion, with Food Chain, the difficulty with playing Food Chain Sliver is that you need outlets in the deck. It sounds trivial, it really does, but here's the thing about it. When you're winning, when you're like set up to win with the deck, you're like actually 70% to win. There's still like a pretty good chance that you can just be stuck and not have the way to win in your deck because you've like used consultation, you've gone too deep, and you don't have a way to win anymore. And that is really bad. I used to put in like even more win conditions in the deck because to like lower those odds because it came up so frequently.
That's that makes sense.
So I'd say, how bad can Food Chain be though? So it's B. You have access to the red cards, which is good. You have access to like some white cards, which is basically just Silence and Ranger Captain, I suppose, compared to Ugin-Makezar. But Ugin-Makezar is so much more consistent. Really,
that sounds about right.
Based on what I was saying earlier, I'd really like Ugin-Makezar to be like bottom of A and this to be in B. But they both have to be in B now.
Bro,
that's
imagine
what it's gonna
if
be.
I told you 2 years ago that like
this was a
Godo
top deck.
Was better than the best Food Chain deck.
Wait, Godo was better than the best Food Chain deck 2 years ago?
Imagine if I told you that 2 years ago, Alex. That in the future Godo would be better than like Food Chain decks.
I'd ask you if they printed a better Helm of the Host.
Same with like, yeah. Same with.
The format changed and there's more stacks and Godo got better.
Yeah.
He's also just the turn 1 win is. I think that's what pushes the deck so high is because it's so consistent getting Treasonous Ogre turn 1. It's kind of insane. If you hard mull for it, you get it a lot. It's really weird. All right, let's go to Kess. One of the format staples, I'd say.
Yeah.
She's a.
But let's reverse back real quick. Just one quick little point.
Oh yeah.
Even just a turn 2 or even like a turn 3 Treasonous Ogre from just out of left field will win game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you don't even need it. You just need Treasonous Ogre. It's insane. All right, so we'll go back to Kess. This is literally like another one of those like staple decks in cEDH, but it's so boring. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's
give me your thoughts first because I'm biased.
I have this deck. Like I played this deck, and I disassembled it because it was just I liked Grixis, and I was like I want to like I was playing Godo, I was playing like Heliod, I was playing weird deck. I like playing weird decks. And so I like my monocolored decks, I like my weird decks, I like Paco Haldan. And then I got to Kess and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm playing the good colors. And this was before like Adnaz was really, really big. So I was playing controlled Kess and she was in a great spot. But it was just you did stuff, but like it felt so boring in a weird way because it's just like consultation and then breach stuff and Adnaz and you have everything, but this is a good deck to get people in the format to be like, oh, these are really cool cards I get to play with. You got to play with like all the good cards in Grixis. It's a Grixis shell, so it's automatically a good deck, but it's probably the most boring out of all of them. It is pretty consistent though. It is consistent for sure.
Yeah.
Do not play Storm. Sorry, I'm gonna preface this. Alex also heavily agrees. Jaleva is a Storm deck in Grixis, and Kess is a mid-range deck. If you play Kess Storm, you might as well just play Jaleva, and if you're playing Jaleva mid-range, you might as well just play Kess. So I don't know. There are primers in the cEDH database that have that. And you can play it, but like I would.
That is so confusing to me.
What?
It's so funny. Like
it is.
Yeah, the primers that are on the database, you have Kess Storm, and then you've got Jaleva mid-range.
No, you have
just
both.
Like
they have both. They have Kess mid-range as well too. It's just they have both of them.
But it's funny. I'm just like, yeah, it's
it's just funny because it's like they're playing literally the exact same cards basically, and then
really all I have to say about Kess is like, man, ever since I started playing, I've always hated you.
Yeah, Alex hates this deck. It's hilarious.
Kess really feels like Grixis with all the edges shaved off. Okay, you want to play a Storm strategy. Maybe you want to play Turbo Naz. Well, maybe it's like, okay, well, I'll play Kess. but why play Kess? It doesn't do anything better or worse than any of the other Nas decks. It's just like kind of there in the middle, sitting like a fucking lump.
Yeah.
You're not better into stacks or like faster into like Nas decks. It's just like kind of the middle. It's like you're at pure equilibrium.
I will say
it's irritating to me.
One thing is with the ability on her is very good, and so you're able to accrue a lot of value if there's not like some type of like rule of law out. So like if you can, the thing is it's weird is because you can't get her out early because she's triple colors, so it's kind of hard in that regard.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to get her out, and if she was able to get out early, you would be able to like do things better, but you can't, and so you're just kind of just left with a Grixis shell and then just resiliency on top of that.
And to add to that, Jesse, I would say you can, or you kind of can, but the thing is, the hands that ramp her out really fast don't
have the good cards.
They don't do anything afterwards.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't do anything.
So then you're just stuck.
Yeah. However, we cannot ignore the fact that she's just a 1-card combo with like Demonic Consultation and
100%. Yeah.
Two of format defining cards.
We're dumping on her, and like you probably think we're gonna put her in like high powered casual, but like we're actually gonna put her. I am honestly gonna put her in S tier.
We're dumping on her because she's good.
So you know what? To dump on her even further, this is like not correct, but I feel like putting Kess in A tier just because I feel like the problem is not the deck. The problem is that the deck is set up in a way that it attracts people that are like newbies to the deck. And when you get experience with Kess, you say, okay, fuck Kess, I'll move on to something better, because then you start tailoring the deck, right? That's the thing. It's like when you start playing a deck with the primer, that's the baseline, and then you start making card changes and tweaks. Okay, that's Kess. You start realizing the change that you make is the commanders, and you start playing something different, because maybe you're like, well, I want something that's like more grindy, but like drawing cards. Then you play like Krom Tavesh. Maybe you say, I want something faster, that's like still resilient with like a number of combos. Then you can play like Malcolm Vile Smasher.
That sounds about right. I know you hate the deck. I'm gonna put her in bottom of S tier. That's where I'm.
Yeah.
Really, part of it is because I'm still remembering the days of like Kess Storm where they played like Paradox Engine. Paradox Engine is training wheels. If you need Paradox Engine to storm off, then you weren't doing it right in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
It's still S tier though.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's a bottom of S just because it's a deck to get into the format, but it's definitely a deck that most people move away from, so the only people left playing it are kind of the noobs.
Sorry, Kess players.
Sorry,
but
if you like Kess...
I had to do it to you.
Like, Kess will still like destroy a lot of decks, so we're dumping on it, but it's a great deck. Obviously, it's an S. Alright, now to... isn't this like Mon's favorite commander? Sisay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like cEDH TV Mon's favorite commander. I don't know too much about the deck. I know it's 5 color and it has pretty good grind, I think.
Are we talking? So I guess like the question is like, are we going to evaluate that as like Sisay, or are we going to think of it as like the Jeggy Sisay, with the companion?
Oh, I'm not sure. Is there 2 different types? I didn't even know.
It's like a little bit different between them.
Which one is the better one? I don't know.
Deck. I'm just gonna go with what I believe to be, the best deck. That's generally kind of, what I'm doing for most of these, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing as well. Picking the ones that I think are in the best position.
Sisay winds up kind of being able to play into almost everything. And while she's not the best at anything, the deck has, it feels like you're playing 5-color Yisan, and
in a good way.
It's true, yeah.
In a good way, yeah. You kind of you have game in pretty much every pod, even though all the stuff that makes up your deck is, even though you're playing 5 colors, like, all the cards are like, I don't know, how do I put it? They're not like the format staple cards. You know what I mean? I won't say they're not bad cards, but they're all, you're playing like a couple of legends that like aren't the best things in the world, but the deck winds up just being able to have game, pretty, like I've said, I think 3 times now, it winds up having game in pretty much every pod, because it can kind of adjust its game plan just with Sisay searching up what you need when you need it.
I'm thinking putting this around like mid to top A tier. Does that sound good, or?
I'm kind of feeling the same way, though. I mean, I guess it is like worth mentioning. I guess that if you are playing the version with Gigantha, the nice thing about that is it's similar to Godo. All you really have to do is get mana, and that lets you get Gigantha, put Gigantha into play, and then you can really start going with Sisay.
Right.
So that's like a pretty nice thing that you can do. And again, just like accumulating mana over turns, it's a strategy that's like gonna happen, right? You're not gonna like be missing your land drops. It's not as specific as like I need to find a piece in my deck. It's just no, I'm going to generate mana. I'm gonna play my mana vaults and my Grim Monoliths and just sit on them.
Yeah, and the deck kind of feels like Godo in that you're just gonna kind of like you're gonna find your win eventually. The deck, if you're able, pretty much no matter what, if like the game goes like long enough, you're gonna be able to just like play your stuff, activate Sisay, and get there.
You guys are making me want to build this deck, saying it's like Godo. I actually was about to build this deck. Like there was the deck I was gonna build right after Godo, but then like COVID happened, and so it's just like.
I will say though that it is a deck that you need to be playing it very well, or else it's not gonna serve you well if you don't play it.
You're not gonna make the most of it.
Yeah. You're not gonna do well with this deck if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a hard deck. I will say it's a hard deck.
Like, I will say if you're playing it at like the best level, like if you're playing this deck perfectly, this is an S tier deck. With that being said though, like it's almost like impossible to play this deck perfectly.
Right.
The impression I get also is that I feel like this deck is probably underplayed. It doesn't seem like a ton of people are jumping in and testing things with
definitely.
this.
Yeah, I would say that as well.
Compared with like other archetypes anyway, so I'd say it has room to grow.
Let's go on to the king of mono blue right now. What I think is Urza, Lord High Artificer, and the one thing I want to say is I think the best way to play this right now is probably like the Tidespout Tyrant. Is that what you guys are thinking?
Definitely agree,
because Hull Breacher got banned, and then after that, there's not really a reason to play anything else.
Yeah,
in Tidespout.
You're sticking in there for Gilded Drake and the cost reducers. That's kind of what it comes down to, and Spellseeker. So all these cards are good. But ultimately, the power of being able to, polymorph and have that as like a one-card win con almost.
cEDH is all about one-card win cons right now. If you can be playing them, you want to be playing them. You want to be playing your efficient one-card combos, even if you have to build your deck a little bit worse around them.
Exactly.
And the wonderful thing about like Tidespout Tyrant is that you're able to bounce something first and then try to start winning.
Right.
So you can hit the Rule of Law or something like that, or remove a problematic permanent. And even if you can't do that because you need to cast more spells, I mean, you can set up for that beforehand. Maybe end step you're gonna like snap back, or you're gonna like snap a creature or something like that.
Right.
And then like try going with like the polymorph the next turn. So I think that's a pretty good. I wouldn't say Urza's like overwhelmingly strong though. He's decent, but you can't like activate him for value, so he has that disadvantage. He's not card advantage. You don't want to be spinning him for Mind's Desire every turn because you're gonna get counter spells and things like that.
Yeah.
You want to do that main phase if anything.
Yeah.
And it's not appealing.
I think he's I don't know if he used to be better, but I think he's an A tier for sure.
Yeah, he used to be better. He's an A tier.
Yeah,
he's just solid. I'd recommend Into the North had a really wonderful in-depth look at Urza, where they had some long-time Urza players on there talking about the deck.
I'm gonna put him between Godo and Sisay. I like that.
Yeah,
that sounds around. All right. Oh, this is another deck that one of the players at our LGS, our old LGS, used to play was Zur, and there's two ways to play Zur. So you have like the Turbo Zur, where you just like get Zur out and then just try to Shimmer Zur. Sorry, I call it Turbo Zur. Yeah, you're getting Shimmer Zur out, and you're just trying to storm off. Or you go with the Stacks Zur, which one of the players at our store played.
Shimmer Zur was the first cEDH deck that Jesse ever got to play. Can you believe he stuck in the format after that?
Yeah.
He had to have people help him with the line.
I won that game, I want to say, but John won that game for me because I was very confused. And I was playing against him, and I was like, So I hit you and I searched for, and I was just like, I don't know what to search for. Like, what do I do? That's what I like about like Zur's not a good. This is another thing. It's like you don't know what to search. I mean, I didn't know what to storm. So storm's not a good thing to give to new players. Like with Godo, it's like you know what you're searching for. Even like other decks that decks that just have one thing that they do. It's easy. Storm's hard to get the hang of it, especially for a newer player. So, but I'd say Zur's kind of okay right now. I think.
So the issue with Zur is
Zur's weird.
The Zur effect, really. It's that you're playing such a powerful commander in the command zone. Everybody knows Zur is good. All of the casual players know Zur is good too. If they see Zur in the command zone, they'll be pissed at you. And you know what? They don't even know what you're gonna do. So Zur is just like a problem because he eats removal. Everyone's hyper aware. All eyes are on you.
Yeah.
And the deck hasn't really gotten a ton of new tools. So everything else has been like kind of moving, and he's just been standing still. That's the problem.
Yeah, and
I think Zur is pretty solid, but that's just like some of the weird caveats that are like surrounding the card. It's really not his fault.
It's not. Yeah.
It's kind of like there's kind of this idea instilled pretty much in everyone's mind that like if Zur sticks around for a turn and they get to swing with it, they're just gonna win. Like that's pretty much what people see Zur as. So you have to somehow maneuver that. And it is not that clear cut. There is there is quite a considerable fail rate to doing the shimmers.
For sure, yeah.
When you're playing Shimmer, when you're playing Zur at this point, you're like fighting for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Staxer? How's that situated? That's just kind of like I think that was a pet deck, right?
Look, Jesus is an incredible player.
He is, yeah. He was a really good player.
He is able to make that deck work because he's been
playing this game before I was born.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah.
Like the deck is not great. I'm just gonna say that it's really not good. But
everything said, I still think Zur is B tier.
Yeah,
I don't think he can go lower than that.
I don't think he
because
can go lower than that
Zur as baseline is very strong, but that's also kind of the issue right now.
I'll put him on like Rurik Thar, First Sliver, I think.
Unfortunately, there's like this collective memory around Zur that like everyone hates him. It's like, snakes in the modern day. You have like a garden snake that's like totally fine in the backyard, and somebody will whack it with a shovel.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Let's get on to I don't think I've ever seen this deck played, but I've heard about it. Grand Arbiter Augustine, the 4th.
Let's put this shit in the trash already. Let's be honest.
Like an old deck? Is this one of those? Like, I feel like this is a really old deck, right?
This is bad Brago.
It's bad Brago.
Straight up.
Okay.
I think it's bad Brago. Do you know when this does well? In the mid-range. You know what people aren't playing tons of? Mid-range. Yeah.
True.
And then even times when it's like fast deck, mid-range deck, Grand Arbiter, you're like, hee, I'll play Grand Arbiter, and the stacks deck or the fast deck sees this and they're like, oh, sick. They can't play Force of Will.
That's true. Yep, that's true. Sometimes people don't realize stacks pieces actually screw you over because the decks that can maneuver just enough to get around it are gonna just auto win because you're basically playing defense grid for them.
So here's the problem also. The deck has a really hard time winning. It is like the opposite of Winota, where with Winota, you're able to snowball and you're able to turn the corner very quickly and convert this into a win. Because ultimately, that's what Stacks wants to do. You want to generate tempo by slowing everyone else and then win the game yourself.
Right.
Grand Arbiter can't do that.
Right.
What you do, he just sits there like a lump. You have to play like Recurring Insight or some crap and hope to draw cards. And then what do you do? Helm Rip? No thanks.
Yeah.
At least with Brago, for all of his faults, he has clear and compact win cons.
That's true.
All you need to do is play your Stronic Resonator or your Lithoform engine and generate infinite flickers. If you have something that draws in play, then there you go. You just go until you get Venser, Shaper, Savant. Then you play him, bounce everything, and then you play all your stacks pieces. That's it. You don't need anything else. Good luck to your opponents. What are they going to do? Play land and then pass because you have a Trinisphere in play? And then you go the next turn and you do it again. You bounce their land. You just beat them to death.
Yeah, Grand Arbiter, it honestly, it is one of those... It used to be a really popular old deck, right? Is that what it was?
Grand Arbiter is a pinnacle boomer deck. I'm
Boomer
putting
deck.
this in D tier.
I would also agree with D tier. It's definitely
It's like strictly worse.
It's a boomer deck.
We can talk about Lavinia also, because I think Lavinia has more viability than Grand Arbiter, but I don't think
she's in the similar thing. She's got like the Omen pool. She's got some cool things that can that can.
She has different issues,
let me pull up Omen pool real quick. We'll talk about.
She has similar but different issues.
Yeah.
Or is it Omen Machine? It's Omen Machine, right?
There's Omen Machine and then Knowledge Pool.
They call the deck Omen Pool, right? But yeah.
Too bad they don't call the deck pools closed anymore.
That's funny. Yeah, but Omen Machine, you can get Linvala out, and then no one can play anything. If that just stays on, they can only play with the cards in their hand.
From their hand. I believe they can still play their commanders.
And their commanders, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's kind of... It's a cool lock. There's that.
It sounds... Here's the thing with like locks like that, though. You know, I was discussing this with John a while back. Yes, it sounds like you win the game, but you don't. You find out how many creatures your opponents play, and you start getting smacked every turn because it's not enough. You need to like ult your planeswalkers or something to actually get the hard win.
I do think Linvala is in a better spot because she is able to stop like Nas decently well.
Lavinia is good at like stopping Nas because you're hating on the rocks and you're slowing them down from actually playing that at Nas.
The deck, it at least has a way to win, which like makes it better than
It's just bad into other like stacks decks. I think that's like the kind of moral of the story.
Yeah,
it's really good if I can see it being really good if you're in like one of those like inbred like turbo metas and that's like your stacks pick. That sounds like a really good stacks pick.
Yeah.
But when it starts getting more mixed,
yeah, especially if your opponents are on like Turbo Nas decks with small creatures, like non-Crom Turbo Nas decks. Like if you're facing Rog Silas and stuff, and you drop freaking, you drop a turn 1 Lavinia, they're really not gonna have a good time.
So I'd say because of that, like Lavinia is probably like
low A, maybe high B.
I'd say like B or C.
B or C, okay.
No,
I can't decide.
You think it's what?
I think it's C that can like situationally beat B.
Yeah.
What did you say, John? Where are you putting it?
I think it's C tier.
C tier.
I played the deck.
I'll put it around the same. I think it's around the same as Brago, right?
Yeah. It's like the same. It's like similar as Brago. Like I'd say it's better than when you can like. You have the option of targeting metas, okay? That's like a very reasonable thing. If you're targeting the right meta, Lavinia is definitely better. She's definitely like a B or something if you're targeting that tier. She could even be like a total like meta breaker in that sense. But in a blind meta, I would have like some serious issues playing her. Yeah. It's similar with like Brago right now.
How are you guys feeling on Tulane? How's the Tiller of Tales doing now? I think it's a cool deck. One of our friends played it. He's playing Food Chain now. But I think it's cool. It kind of...
I think you should go back to playing this deck.
Oh, 100%. I think this is a better deck than... Oh, right. It's Holland. That's right.
Holland.
It's cool because it's very creature
You forgot
heavy.
the vocal frictive, so it's like Holland.
Oh, yeah. I think it's... Yeah, right. I think it's cool because it's playing creature heavy stuff, and that's like... there's not a lot of creature
It's hard to interact with in ways that are meaningful, and there aren't a ton of board wipes going on right now.
Right, and
for that reason,
I'm not like heavy.
I'm thinking A tier for that reason.
I definitely think A tier for this deck. I actually really like the deck.
I have to disagree.
It's the rule of law effects.
I do think this is still a B tier deck, even though it does plays around a lot of the played interaction. But it still technically like cannot win through rule of law effects. It can grind through them very well, but it does wind up I feel like it has enough matchups where it's just like not quite good because people can just skate under it, go a little bit too fast.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like there's enough matchups where it's not...
And then against mid-range, there's the ever-looming threat of Gilded Drake.
Exactly.
What a toxic card.
Yeah.
I love that card.
you're still just a little bit too slow for me to feel like this is an A tier deck. I see all the A tier decks, and I think they're a little bit above. Tulane, you can play this and definitely win games and stuff, but like if an opponent is devoted, if an opponent wants to like to make sure, I don't know, like if a mid-range opponent wants to make sure you don't really get there, they can still kind of do that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think since me and Alex put A, I'm gonna put it at the bottom of A tier, like at the start.
I'm kind of agreeing with John here, actually. Like,
okay.
Yeah, because I'm seeing some of the stuff in A tier, and it does make sense that they can grind better. Like A tier, I'm seeing stuff like, you know, Jessica Ishai and like double Kodama.
Do you think it's better than
It's sort of stuff like grinds. Is it better? No, I don't think it is.
Really? Okay.
Yisan gets hit by fewer hate.
No, that's true.
And Yisan is just benefiting.
That's true. Okay, that makes sense. I'll put it top of B then.
Parasitic Centipede Man.
Parasitic Centipede Man, literally. Alright, Muldrotha. This used to be a really good deck. I don't know about now, but it seems pretty decent now. There's a lot of graveyard hate right now, so I don't think it is, honestly.
Hot take. Casual. For the same reasons as Edric.
Really? Wow.
I think you're gonna have a much better time playing Muldrotha in casual. In
Honestly,
cEDH, it's like it's competent, but it's not. What's your reason for wanting to play it in cEDH?
Yeah,
That's kind of what I question.
The thing about Muldrotha is the cards that are good with Muldrotha just aren't really that good of cards in general, and you don't really want to be playing very much of the cards that are good with Muldrotha for that reason, and the fact that Muldrotha is 6 mana means that it's not coming out for a while. Like,
yeah,
for a while. So you're kind of in this weird position where you're like, okay, do I build a bunch into Muldrotha and kind of have like synergies there, or am I just playing generic Sultai? And those are kind of tensions that that Muldrotha decks have, and honestly,
and hey, we have better generic Sultai commanders.
Yeah. I haven't really seen anyone play Muldrotha.
I haven't either.
Well, it's like Spleenface's pet deck from like the back in the day, right? Like that was the whole thing with Muldrotha in the first place, I believe.
Yeah. I
don't believe in it. I don't have faith in Muldrotha. I think you're gonna have a much better time
in casual.
You know what you do? You demote your Muldrotha deck to casual, and instead you play Tasigur.
Yeah.
We can talk about Tasigur right now. Oh, Gassiter Poppiter, we miss you.
Tasigur, is that in the list right now or no?
Yeah.
Where's Tasigur?
Yeah, he is. Let's talk about Tasigur. He's like in the middle of what's left.
Oh, Tasigur, there he is. I didn't even see him. Yeah, let's talk about Tasigur.
Gassiter Poppiter.
What? I've seen people play this deck. It looks kind of cool. It's like a control deck, right? I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a Sultai grindy mid-range control thing.
This is like
Neoformant Conk.
This is like the control deck, right? It's
like
pretty...
how bad can it be? It's Sultai. It's like controlling, so it's kind of slow, but it has some neat stuff going on.
It's also got Delve.
As long as you're not playing Seasons Past, I'll put it in like B, I believe. I think that's like kind of the right place.
That sounds about right.
I think it's still better than Bjorn.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's at the higher end of it.
Okay, I'll put that there then.
At some points in the past, I might have been tempted to put in A. I think it's a little slow for that now.
It used to be. I believe it used to be A, personally.
Because it used to be that when back in the day when I played Flash and we were in sandbag meta, you would be able to just target people constantly over turns and get your cards back that way.
That's where our name came from, dude. Or the sandbaggers.
Yeah, exactly.
That meta was toxic. Oh my god.
It was so toxic. You know what? Now we're like the total like Zoomer Turbo Nas stuff, and I like that much better.
It's very fun.
It's more clear at what decks you need to target anyway.
Yeah, Tasker, cool, good control deck. Let's go on to...
He's solid. You can't really go wrong.
Let's go on to the man. Gitrog. R.I.P.
Gitrog Monster.
R.I.P. Gitrog. That's all I'm gonna say, dude. Rest in peace, the monster.
Actually, I think Gitrog's getting a little better. I'm thinking B tier. Whole Breacher guy did.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Whole Breacher got whacked off the face of the earth.
He was like getting shafted because like the Stacks decks played like personally when I play my Stacks decks, I was playing a lot of graveyard hate because Underworld Breach is a good card, so you gotta stop people off that, and that stops Gitrog. And then
that's what really is holding Gitrog back right now.
Yeah, like
you can grind under Rule of Law because you're like playing lands and you're sacking them, and guess what? Gitrog is a fat chunker. He's a 6/6 with Death Touch. You can start swinging that thing and go crazy. Have you seen how frogs attack their prey? They go and frickin' tackle it. That's why I imagine every time with Gitrog. Unfortunately, that's not always enough.
It's not.
So Gitrog is kind of limited and stuff. I do like some of the new cards like Grist.
Gitrog used to be like S tier, right? He was up there.
Kind of. Well, S tier was Flash Hulk. Let's be real.
No, Flash Hulk was SS tier. We're talking about the tiers we made.
Kind of. I feel like what happened with like Flash being such a obvious like best deck was that it let people get away with like mentally justifying live decks as like being like top of the format that maybe weren't actually there, but like in their mind, it's like, well, it's still worse than Flash Hulk, but still pretty good.
Well, I see your point.
I mean, their numbers for how well Gitrog performed when Oracle Hulk was a thing. A lot of people continued to play Gitrog.
It was really dire at that time.
Win rates. Yeah, it was not. I will say back when, I think when people were playing like Janker Hulk decks, but like when Oracle Hulk became a thing,
it was too streamlined.
I don't think Gitrog has been an S tier deck since Thassa's Oracle came out. To be completely,
that makes sense. Yeah, I was talking about before that for sure.
Gitrog is kind of in that lump of like commander-centric decks that do cool things and have like powerful plays that they can make, but they're kind of limited in certain respects.
I'll put it around Chulane. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Gitrog's pretty cool.
Yeah, B tier is a good home for him.
Has one of the biggest communities, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like that? That's funny.
I'd like to pick up Gitrog sometime though.
All right, let's go on to one of my favorite decks, Heliod, the Sun Crown. When this deck came out, I was so happy because I was trying to build a mono white commander, and I built Balan, which was like really bad. It was like an artifact enchantment deck where you just put
kidding me? Balan was Chadley.
Balan was cool. If you're playing Balan, you were not winning anything, but you were cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like that. What's that Yu-Gi-Oh card? Armored Samurai, like Ben K or something like that. You know, the dude with like a million different weapons on his back and all that. That was like Balan.
Yeah.
It was like a Voltron deck that played like humility.
So I was playing
and stuff.
Balan, and then I'm like, I built that deck and I took it apart because I was like, it's not going anywhere. I got one win with it and I was happy. And then as I was taking it apart,
you killed someone with it,
huh?
And then you're happy.
Did you actually? I think I killed Alex or someone. I forgot who it was.
Probably.
It was probably Alex. It was funny. And so I took it apart and I'm like, damn, I really want to build a mono white deck. And I was looking at Teshar and I was like, I don't want to build Teshar, like, because I like stacks. Like even when I was playing Godo, I like putting stack stuff in it that was funny, like Possibility Storm, stuff like that. And then lo and behold, Heliod comes out and I'm like, okay, that's a sick card. So one of my friends opened a Heliod, I think it was Bijan, and I had a breeding pool, and I was like immediately like, here, I'm gonna trade you because breeding pool at the time was like $20, and Heliod was about the same. So I was like, let's trade. It gives me Heliod, and I was like, hell yeah! And this deck is just so fun to play. It's mono white, but you get to do you get such cool cards, and you just make everything fat. And it's like,
everything fat.
It's a win con in the command zone, and you're able to tutor Ballista really easily. There's like 5 tutors in the deck for Ballista. It's actually kind of insane. You have all the Rangers, so you got 3 right there. Then you have this construct that like sacks artifact, and you get Ballista into hand. And then you also have Enlightened Tutor. So it's like 5 tutors in the deck for your win con, which is really good. So
so it's really like 7 cards win you the game, because you also have, it's the 5 tutors, you have the Walking Ballista, and there's the Triskelion.
Oh, right, and there's Triskelion, which is the backup win con. And so, like, even if Ballista gets exiled, you're like, okay, cool, and you just get Triskelion. And the thing is, the deck grinds. So it doesn't grind as a hard matchup for it is Kenrith, and I know that because we play against it, and it is hard because Kenrith does grind a little bit better with all those activations. But honestly, a cool thing about Heliod is the primer is like 93 cards, and even people that play the deck you can really make this deck like a pet deck, because you can have weird stuff in it that only you will have. Even though there's Heliods, they'll play differently because you'll have like certain things to stop stuff that you play with, and you can easily fit stuff in because it's mono white. So there's like a ton of cards, surprisingly, like that you can just put in because they're all kind of around the same power level, but they just do good against other things. Like Linvala will stop.
Honestly, just play Linvala at this point.
Oh, I did. I put it in.
Yeah?
Okay. So that's another thing. I edit this deck so much. I literally edit this. I try to put in stupid combos like Bruna and Gisela, or was it Grisella? That was horrible. But you can do, even with that like dumb combos in there, like I tried like the book combo, the new one, the Dungeons and Dragons Exalted something.
Book of Exalted Deeds.
Yeah, that was, and I realized that was bad. And then now I'm just going on like good stuff right now with like stuff to stop other people, and I think it should do pretty well. But this deck wins games a lot, actually, and it stops Nas very effectively. So
I think Heliod is an easy S as far as decks go.
I think it's an S as well. It's probably one of the best, and for being mono white, it's saying a lot.
Yeah.
It's right around Kenrith, because
hey, Stacks is on a good record right now. What do we have in S tier? We have Kenrith, Winota, and Heliod.
100%, yeah, and that's saying a lot with all these Nas. The rest of it is literally just Nas shells.
It's like different flavors of it, yeah.
It's just different flavors of Nas. So like honestly, it's literally like Nas shells, Kenrith, and then Heliod. Heliod's probably one of the like Heliod and Winota are probably like the 2 most interesting Stacks decks in there. Or not even in there. It's just the 2 most interesting decks in there because they do play differently, but they're good. Let's see. Oh, I forgot what the name of the primer. It was called like Sausage something. Croxa. This deck's hilarious. It's just like a weird.
This deck is stupid.
I love this deck. I think it's funny. I
don't understand why you'd want to play this, to be perfectly honest.
I don't know either, but you get to mess with people's hands with like burning inquiry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a funny deck. Do you have anything to say?
Is that version? I know there are multiple versions, multiple way people play it. There's a Turbo Nas version, and then there's like
hilarious.
and then there's like weird grindy control versions. I don't really. I'm not super familiar with all
I'm looking at the Seared Sausage right now, and this one's like, it's playing Ad Nauseum, yes, but it's playing like Mind Rake and
it just plays funny stuff. This is just a meme deck that you can.
Yeah, it's Grimoire.
You can just get like I know this is one of those decks that people will be like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then you'll be able to like mess them up just enough to kind of get through. And I think that's one of those decks. And like people just won't expect it. They're just like, "What the hell?"
I know I've played against a Croxa deck a number of times. And it is a deck that can kind of just steal wins. The deck can actually win at instant speed with Entomb Necromancy.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that's
that's a plus
something.
for sure.
I'm not sure. I don't really like this deck that much though, to be honest.
No. Good.
I think you're gonna get like, okay, so it's like virtual card advantage because you're making your opponent's discard, but you're not getting cards yourself. You don't have a lot of options. That's the issue you run into. So I can't put it any higher than like C.
No, I agree.
I think C is good. C sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it right next to like Orvar.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Alright, and last deck. I actually forgot, we don't have Inala in here. I don't know why I didn't include it.
We forgot Inala and Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Those are the 2 I'm thinking of.
We'll do
like Narset.
We'll do Inala at the end. I think that'll be it.
Like ever.
What happened?
I said people don't even place a DC. Oh wait, Brood Tyrant. Oh,
Yeah.
Brood Tyrant, yeah.
Yeah.
No, mono black. We are a long way from mono black's DC being good.
Oh yeah. Let's go to Omnath though. One of our friends plays this deck.
Yeah.
This is
an Omnath stacks, I believe we're talking about, really.
Yeah. This is a stacks deck. It's pretty interesting.
I don't think there's any Omnath deck that's like that can be better than B tier. I honestly feel like Omnath is a C tier deck. Like I just don't know why you'd be wanting to play Omnath.
It does really well into like the inbred stacks we have.
So
That's
yeah.
wild.
So,
but honestly, it doesn't even. I feel like certain stacks decks still do better in the inbred stacks meta.
Definitely.
Like I feel like
Kenrith.
it's better.
Kenrith, yeah.
Just it grinds better in inbred stacks. And yeah, I don't know.
So-
you can do weird like 4-color breach stuff with it, but why are you playing a breach deck without black?
Yeah, that sounds wrong.
So here's my thought on Omnath. So it's like a stacks deck, but like all the enchantment stuff is like very agnostic to the commander, really. So the question is like, what is Omnath doing? And the answer is like you're sometimes getting extra land drops and like flickering lands or things like that to get value off of him, and that just doesn't seem like great to me. I feel like you can do more with the color combination with different commanders, and retain like most of the shell.
I like Cheyenne's list, and it's funny.
I like it. I think the 99 is good, and then like the 100th card is like, I don't know. I can't really evaluate him that highly.
I'm gonna put him bottom of B. That sounds around.
Yeah.
It's like either like C or like bottom of B. Yeah. I can't really just distinguish.
Actually, I'll put him top of C. I think top of C is good because I've seen it played. That
sounds fine.
It has one, but it literally usually wins because everyone concedes. Because no one can kill you, and it's really annoying.
Well, it's like the whole thing is like an enchantment. The one that we're seeing is like a whole enchantment shell, and that doesn't really interact with Omnath all that much, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's like the kind of mid-rangey breach Omnath deck that I think is interesting, but like I just really there's very little reason why I'd want to be playing that deck and that commander when I see that. It's very unattractive. I can't. Yeah, I think C or B tier is where it belongs.
All right,
yeah.
I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna pull it up here. We're gonna talk about, this is gonna be the last deck we talk about. It's gonna be a Nala. This is one of Alex's favorite decks.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah, Inala is just a really fun deck to play if you really like these like unique lines and like weird situations, because sometimes you get stopped. One of the things I really like about Inala is into these sort of mid-range pods, you can just play the deck absolutely relentless. You're threatening turn after turn because all you really need to do when you get stopped at these points is get a reanimation spell, and you get that Skull of the Ages back out of the grave, and you keep going and you keep threatening them that way, like turn after turn.
Right.
Now you're not seeing as many of those mid-range decks anymore, so it's not as good. It's still a pretty competent Turbo Naj shell, so I think it's on the lower end of like S tier now, to be honest. I don't think it's quite A tier yet.
I think lower end of S. It's definitely one of the most unique Adnal shells.
It's still like pretty fast, but it doesn't really do anything for like grinding that much.
I see. Yeah.
There's like there's been like some new tech recently with like, or I guess like relatively recently, there's like stuff like Seagate Oracle and whatever. Or no, that's not the one. Seagate Stormcaller. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. I think the deck is really good, but the deck does eat all the relevant interaction in the format, and it doesn't grind really. But it winds up being like pretty much faster than anything, and efficient. But again, you're just into mixed pods. It can have difficulty when it's being attacked at like every angle, right?
Pretty decent. I'd say bottom of S as well. I put it right around. Probably put it in front of Kess and Golos. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Put it there. But yeah, that seems like the end of our tier list. That was
Pretty
a
comprehensive.
long video that we'll definitely be cutting up, but
That was exhausting.
That was crazy. That was pretty long.
Woo.
I'll say thank you guys for watching, and definitely this is gonna be the first video on the channel. So subscribe, comment, and let us know what you guys think.
That bell.
Ring that bell. I'm dead. Yeah, but yeah, we definitely be putting out different stuff on cEDH. We're also gonna be trying to do like modern and stuff, like I said in the beginning, or some other formats that we see. We're just gonna kind of put our opinion out there because we see a lot of other people that are putting their stuff out there, and sometimes we have different opinions, and we like to
maybe put out a video about actual spite plays.
Actual spy plays. Oh yeah,
that could be interesting.
See how to be a cEDH terrorist. I think there's a video on that already. Shout out to cEDH TV on that one. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe and leave a like, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
Peace.